So as you can see, we got a bunch of parts here for the truck. Gearing up to do a few different jobs, all kind of in the same location. So just before Christmas, my AC compressor locked up. Like, it had not been working for an unknown length of time, but it actually locked up, and when the truck was trying to defrost, the clutch kicked in and it was just destroying the clutch. So being that this truck has got 260,000 or some miles on it, I don't know how long the compressor was failed. I don't really know much of what's going on. I decided to buy all new hoses, a condenser, and a flush kit to go through it. And when it was down to minus 20 Celsius, I was getting a lot of belt train noise, which some of it was definitely coming from the compressor before it locked up, but the tensioner and idler were also starting to go. So if I'm going to have the front of the truck off, I figured I'd try to do all of it in one shot. And then I've got like a power steering hose here, and then a turbo hose. Mine's leaking a little bit. So rather than trying to find the O-rings and what have you, it's like 20 bucks or something for a hose. So I decided to get that. So to look through it, I've got a new thermal expansion valve. This goes up against the firewall, and it regulates how much refrigerant is going through the system, versus some AC lines still have like an orifice in one of the in the liquid line to limit how much flow is going into the unit. And this doesn't have that. It's a little more adaptive using the TXV. I got a kit with new O-rings. The lines all came with O-rings on the ends, but the TXV appears like it's going to need some O-rings as well. So that's kind of what I'm going to be using for the kit by the looks of it. I think I'm going to have a lot of leftover high quality O-rings, which is not a terrible thing. I got a new Gates belt. I wanted to bypass the AC system on the truck here, but for whatever reason you can't, and it's the same belt as the main drivetrain. Like, the AC is nice to have, you don't have to have it. Like on the van here, it has its own little belt for the AC compressor. It lives in its own little world. If you have an AC problem, you just cut the belt off and you keep on going. And one of the guys I know at work, he's got like a 6.4 power stroke, I think. And his also has a separate belt for the AC on it, but Cummins Ram here decided to put everything on the one belt. I guess it's less parts, but it's kind of annoying that, like, look at this. It's -5 out, and I'm fixing the AC on this truck. Like, what the heck? But anyway, so here we are. I bought a service kit for the AC system, so it came with a couple things I don't need. Like, there's this filter thing here. I guess that's the plug. And then the filter dryer here. It lives on the side of the condenser. So some of the old AC systems, they'd have like a big, like 2 or 3 inch round contraption somewhere in line. Current vehicles don't have that. You just take the plug out the bottom and you can slide the pieces out and replace them. But they tell you not to bother trying to flush these things, and they're not that expensive, so I'm just gonna replace it and hopefully it works out. It did come in kind of mangled. The box was damaged, and I'm like, oh crap, what am I going to do? But I was able to bend the thing back into position, and then when we pull vacuum on it, we'll know whether it's got a problem or not, whether it's going to get returned. So we'll see about that. With the Aisin transmissions, there's no secondary cooler on the condenser. I guess with the Mopar transmissions, the RFEs, they've got another cooler thing attached to it, but not the case. So you buy the manual transmission cooler for the Aisin. Because it's so cold out, I'm going to have to weigh in the refrigerant. So I've got a little scale here that can weigh ounces. And so there's 12 ounces in this can. The can actually weighs about 15 ounces. So we'll weigh it in. Chemours is essentially DuPont. So this is like the original type refrigerant that you would put in a truck or a vehicle, whatever. the 134A. This is real 134A, it's not a substitute. If you live in the US, you can buy SuperTech, I think it's called, at Walmart for like $10 a can. But being in Canada, some truck stops will have real refrigerant and sell it to you, but it's kind of pricey. So I just ordered some off from the States here. So I got way more than I need. And then I'll just decide what to do with what's left over. With cans, you want to get the self-sealing cans, not the piercing cans, if possible. And you'll need an adapter for your gauge set. So I hooked up the gauges here, and the system was dead. So you basically leave these open, you clip them onto the line, you make sure these are both closed. You're not going to touch the red at all, because that's opening the valve to your center port. So you really don't need to do anything with this valve. You just, when you're filling it, you're going to fill through the blue side. So you will, at some point, start using this, or when you're drawing vacuum, you can open them both, but you got to be careful that you don't blow up a can, because that could definitely happen if you're messing around with this, with the system running. So you do disconnect the batteries on both sides of the truck, because when you're messing around with the front of the truck, there's sensors in here, and you do not want the truck to think it's rolling over and then set off all the airbags, because then that's a real problem. I don't know how you'd get out of that situation. To get into the condenser, you got to remove this thing here. I had to take the winter bra off the truck as well. So you just use a little tool here for pulling out the push pins, and you take off the wheel, and order to get into the compressor here. So I don't know if you can see into the back of that or not, but it's completely burned up. So I got to the toll booth about to cross the border into the States, and when I stopped, smoke started pouring out of the truck. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I was able to pull over and remove the fuse for the compressor clutch, and eventually it stopped smoking, and the bearings weren't too damaged in the compressor, so I was able to get another like 15 hours of driving out of the truck. But after that, the bearings in the basically it's an idler when it's not operating right. The bearings started to go bad in here, so the truck has been down for a week waiting for parts. So the lines, you can see the TXV is kind of stuffed in there behind the two lines. So it looks like everything's pretty accessible when you get the fender liner out. And then I'm going to pull the air box out as well. You don't even need to take the air filter out to pull out the air box, so that's pretty handy. You just have like 1/8 millimeter bolt or worm gear clamp or something you yank out, and that's out of there. And then I'll have to get in and work on the trying to get to the water pump if I'm going to do that. And then I got to do the tensioner and the idler, because I know they're going bad. And like it was actually throwing molten plastic over the other pulleys, so I got to go over them and see which ones have got junk built up on them. And you can see the belt is fairly aged, so it's a good time to kind of do a bunch of stuff in here. I was really hoping to wait until summer to do this, but it just didn't play out that way for me. So what else? Yes, we got the water pump. I kind of prefer Gates belt drive stuff. I don't know, it seems like it does me good, so I can't complain. I've worked on enough police cars, and they've run like all the green belts, and then they run silicone coolant hoses and everything, and they seem to be well beaten, and they don't seem to care. For the Canadian spec cars, I don't know if they do that in the States or not, how they set them up, but they're well set up in Canada. Turning off my flashlight here. So I've got some flush here so I can flush out the evap in the dashboard. That's the only thing I'm not replacing, because that's like a full day job going in and out to do that. And if you're going to do that, you change your heater core at the same time, because these trucks are classic for plugging up the heater core. So I got a vacuum pump here, which is critical. You need to draw the system down to vacuum, and that'll boil off any moisture that'll be in the system when it's under vacuum. I've got a system here. It's just a little pressure tank that you can fill up and spray. See if we can get it up there or not. So you can buy like a aerosol flush kit, but this is kind of not much more money and you get a lot more material. So I decided to go this way, and I can find other uses for this in my mind other than using it for AC flushing, because you could put a brake fluid or brake cleaner in there as well and use that for a brake cleaner spray bottle. So you just pump it up with your shop air and put in your solvent. And what else is there? I got a coolant filter. I got to change that. I'm getting close to doing a review video on the Sinister coolant system, but I got to change the filter and look at it first before I have anything to say about that system, I guess. So yeah, I guess we'll put the tripod up for once. I haven't done that in a while, and then we'll start picking away at the truck. Alright, so I guess we'll get to work here. So like I said, there's just 4 push pins to hold this thing onto the engine. I guess we'll take it out of the way. Then I was expecting 10mm bolts holding this on. There's some Allens here for whatever reason. You know, this truck has had the rad replaced, and there's some funny stuff going on here and there. So that could be what's going on with that. So I have to go run and get my Allen head stuff. So I've been trying out the Westling tool organizers. I'd rather have a tray here right now rather than have all these out with the possibility of dropping everything. But we'll see how this goes. I just don't have a mobile cart at the moment. So I'm not sure what size Torx this is. My socket set's not very well able for that. I could definitely see myself knocking everything over. Like I said, the batteries are already disconnected. Wish I had an extension, it might make this a bit easier. Don't have quite the dexterity in the cold. So normally, at this point, you'd have to reach down and push on this to get this apart. But this truck is missing. There should be a bunch of clips along here to hold it onto the bumper, but that stuff is all long gone. Now to look at what we're replacing. It's going to be this lower rad here. So it's got the dryer in here. These bolts are just part of the rad, they don't need to come out. Looks like I just need to get this stuff off of here. That's pretty good. I don't know if there's anything else holding it in or not. No, that's it. So that's right. I got to take the air intake out yet. So you can see the two connections here. This one's pretty dirty. I kind of feel like this one's been leaking. But I know that the compressor had been leaking as well. It had some dye on the bottom when I got the truck. When I got the garage had recommended changing it at that point. I chose not to. This is also a good time to go in, pull out your headlights and clean them if they're foggy. I don't know if you can see it right now. This one's full of ice on the inside. So I should probably yank it out because there's just the one bolt here, and then you can reach in and get the headlight out, and you can heat it up and get the moisture out of it. So I guess we'll get this air box out of here. So we'll close this. There's no air or gas in the system. Like I said, I checked just for due diligence. You can even check on the OBD scanner and see what your pressure is. So we'll get these out for now. We'll look at them again later. And I think, is it 8mm? Yeah, so you use lots of 8s and 10s to do this job. If I had the right socket, I would just use that. This is actually kind of neat the way this air box comes in and out. It's pretty nice. So there's this one bolt right here. That's the only one really holding it in. And this truck, it's actually stripped out, so it's just a pin at this point for me. So you pull that out, and you'll disconnect the wires when you can get access to them. Get a bit of a fight initially, but we'll get it. One, two, and then there's like their active ram air underneath of it that we got to get to. So that's like the third one right here. So that's out. Now you got access to everything at this point. Like, that's not bad. There's no point in fighting trying to get access to stuff, right? You can see quite a bit right now. Of course, I went and brushed up on the grease I got on my fenders here. Canadian thing. So I have to go clean off my coat. So I think that's a good chunk of the job right there, right? And I don't know how long this has been, if it's really 8 minutes or not. But we're getting pretty close. So now I'm going to have to kind of start picking my way at various components. So I think we'll take the condenser out first. Yeah, why not? And we'll start replacing hoses and work our way back to the compressor. There's one solid line that goes all the way to the evap coil on the inside that we don't replace. We could if you wanted to. You have to take the battery box out to get to it. We're just gonna flush that one. I'm hoping the new lines don't need to be flushed. I've gotten rad hoses that are just fully packed with rubber before, so I'm hoping I don't end up with a situation like that. But yeah, so I'm going to get back to this and kind of get some access to various components, and then we'll bring you back in. So things are coming apart pretty good. So what I found was that to get the condenser out, you need to take off this 13 mil bolt. You can take the air intake horn out. I think that's a 13. There's some 13s and 12s here holding these lines onto this block. Now, you need to get this piece out to swap the condenser, but my line on the bottom is seized, so I'm having a bit of trouble getting this thing out of here gracefully. If you can see in there or not. So, we'll get it, but it's not going to be good for this condenser. But I need to get this bracket out so that we can get the new one in. Like this one, the parts come off, but the new one they don't. So I got to get this sort of out as an assembly. Alright, so things are going really good here. So we've got the condenser out. Like I said, it wasn't going to come out good because that bolt is seized down there in the bottom. Now would be a good time to fluid film your cross member. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to spray it off. Not sure what happened to this guy. That was part of the rad replacement fight that happened at some point. I feel like whoever worked on it at that point really got over their head because there's all wrong fasteners. It's almost like it's a made-up truck with the fasteners that are put in it, which is kind of annoying. So I was able to scoot out that double line thing there through here. You kind of have to loosen up this horn here a bit more and pop it through. So this is your solid liquid line. This does not get changed, so be good to it. Then the rest of the stuff here is pretty simple. It's just some 12 millimeters back there, 12 millimeter at the TXV. It looks like it might have some Allen heads holding it on, so I'm gonna have to get up in there. I can see it, yeah, right there. So we'll get into that. This line is ready to fall out. This other line here is ready to fall out. I tried to get the dryer assembly out of this condenser. It's not happening. I had a nice big Allen heads key to get it out of there, but the plastic stripped immediately. So that's unfortunate. I wanted to see what it looked like inside of there. If we can see inside of the lines or not. It wouldn't be as good as seeing inside that filter. I thought that'd be kind of neat. So I gotta disconnect that crazy Dodge connector there. I've not had much success with them. Hopefully I don't destroy that one as well. And then I've got to get the belt drive system apart. So we'll be doing that pretty soon, but things are feeling pretty upbeat. There's the turbo. It's got a couple thousand kilometers on it now since I put it in. Like I said, I'm just dealing with an oil leak on the oil feed. Otherwise I'd have probably more to say about that as well. But I want to test things properly before I say go out and buy it. So if it's big money like that especially. So we'll be getting to a BD turbo review at some point. So I know there's like 3 bolts holding in this compressor. One's easy to get to the top, 2 underneath. You leave the 2 underneath in the machine and then you put them back on before you put the compressor in place, because they are kind of captive in there. They're too long. The 3rd gens had holes in the frame to get them in and out, but not with the 4th gen. So things are going good. We'll probably tackle everything this weekend and get the truck back on the road. Alright, so we got the compressor disconnected from the engine. It was a 12 mil on top and 13s on the bottom. That part wasn't hard. You pull out that red pin just a little bit and then you can clamp down on the back of that connector and pop it off. For the first time in like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different vehicles, I tried to use this belt tool and it finally worked on something. It actually fit and it worked beautifully on the 1/2 inch on the tensioner. Only one problem. I can't figure out how to get the compressor out. I'm thinking I'm going to have to pull the sway bar off to get it out. Like, this truck's got a front hitch, but I don't think that's what's stopping me. Like, you can see I got a big chunk of metal down here, or maybe you can't. But compressor is stuck in there and it doesn't want to come out. So I'm feeling like that sway bar has got to come down to get that out. So I think I've earned a break. I think it's been going really good actually. I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to go in and warm up a little bit and then go for another attack here. Came to the conclusion I hadn't earned a break yet. I had to at least get the thing taken apart before I started to go and relax and count my victory. So to get the compressor out, I did drop down the sway bar. I wasn't sure if it was under tension or dangerous or whatever. So I did use my jack with the extension and reached up there. So there's some 15 millimeter bolts holding that up, and then I was able to slowly lower it down. And then I've got this goofy, what was a metric converted to a imperial torque wrench. I use this as a power bar because it's got like weird foot-pound numbers on it, so I just use that for abuse rather than a torque wrench. Anyway, we got this out, and the bearings on the freewheeling side of this thing are pretty much roached. That's why the truck had to come off the road. These are medium-duty trucks, and they're expensive to tow. One thing you can do is if you have CAA or AAA, well, if you don't have them, don't get it until you need it. Then you can get their like premium package, and if you pay an extra $100 Canadian, they'll come and pick you up right away. So you enroll when you're on the side of the road broken down, rather than having it full time. And that'll get you like 3 big tows home per year. So you're good to go with that rather than carrying the expense of having the CAA or AAA for your towing coverage. And so, like I said, that's what I would recommend doing. But because like if this thing failed, like you're done. You're not going anywhere. Like if the belt system came off the engine. So see if there's anything else to see in here. Like, not really. The tensioner appears to be super easy to work on with the air box out. The water pump looks like it's just right there. I think it's 2 bolts. You gotta drain the coolant down enough to get to it. Then I'll be able to get my coolant filter out. And I got the idler. I got to get to it. It's sort of on the top in the middle there. I can't see it. I don't know if you can or not. It's in there somewhere. I think that's it. What else is in here? The alternator, you can check your bearings. That one's good. I only have 1 alternator. If I had 2, you could check them both. The if your truck is not deleted, it's hard to get to the thermostat, but I have service records showing that it's done already, so I'm not going to go after it. But man, it seemed like it was intimidating, kind of thinking about the idea of working on air conditioning, but halfway through it seems kind of easy. You do need a means of evacuating your system if it's still full, but aside from that, like, it seems like it's not a big deal. So I'm going to go warm up and then we'll be out here for some more. We've got the compressor installed now. So I'm just getting on to putting in the this thing here. I wanted to see if it was under vacuum or pressure. Like, it's got these rubber caps on it. Like for bigger HVAC equipment, they would be sealed like this, just to notify the receiver. Whether there's been any leak during shipment or not. Oh good, so that was definitely under pressure. So that's excellent. And so we'll take this one off. So like I said, this thing was kind of beat up when I received it, but it didn't suffer any serious damage then. So if you don't hear that sound, I wouldn't even bother installing the evaporator or condenser, whatever this thing is. Yeah, so I've got to put on the hose after I get this in position. You don't want to get any junk inside of the ports, but I do need to kind of get this in with the covers off. So I'm going to do that kind of right now, I guess. So I did the oiling on here, like I had talked about. So we'll see if I can squeeze by here. And my upside down. What is upside right? Yeah, like that. So you gotta get these tags in. That's in. You gotta get this thing in. It's kind of the more fiddly part of it. We'll get it. There. And there's only a bolt on top here. So get that going. I had some fasteners here that were missing washers, so I'll go and get some washers and put them on. And then for the PEG oil, I'll lube these ports before I put in the hoses. That's important so that the hoses don't get bound, or not the hoses, the O-rings don't get bound when you're installing them. And then we'll see what happens after that. Well, things went on really good there. So I've got the lines connected. They were actually face O-rings, so they didn't need any lubrication. But that went on good. Then we put the plastic parts on. The intake horn is back in. So like I said, this grill is missing some parts, but it's holding on for dear life anyway. Yeah, where it belongs. So that's sort of it like that. We got the face back on her. So I'll get that tightened up and we'll see what happens after that. It's starting to get a bit dark outside here now, but I'm going to keep working away. The truck's face is back together there. Didn't put on the cold front yet. If I wanted to, I could do a nitrogen pressure test on it as I'm doing the vacuum drawdown as well. Do like both of those things and do a leak check. But let's pretend we're confident this is going to work out. But ultimately I need to have this truck working for Monday morning. So even if there's a problem somewhere, it's just going to have the compressor fuse removed and it's going to be what it is if I can't get it to draw down or not. But I'm hoping that it all works out. So looking at the hoses now here before we kind of shut down for the evening. So the liquid line here, I'm not sure what this is, but anyway, it's got a pressure sensor on it with a Schrader valve underneath of it, so it can be removed and it seems like it's got an O-ring on here. It's actually like a square ring kind of job, but there's like a piercing piece on it. So the new line that comes with the cap, and it's also got like a green O-ring on it as well. I don't know if you can see that or not. So I think you can change these while the system has pressure on it. I do believe that's the case from what I saw in the manual, but that was a nice, quick, easy thing. So now that line is garbage. We are going to be reusing the liquid line connector, which we don't really need. Ultimately, when you're vacuuming and pressurizing a system, you can do most of it through the low pressure line, but we can do through both. So I'm kind of going to wrap it up for the evening. I got to put the TXV onto the evaporator inside of the truck. So I'll reach in and do that tomorrow morning, and then we'll dump the coolant so that I can do the water pump. It looks like doing the tensioner is super easy, and it's sort of in the front of the water pump. So I might as well take the tensioner out and then go after the idlers out well I've got the most available space in there. But there's not much to see. It's just one bolt. Like I said, I went with Gates. It came with the new bolts for the tensioner and the idler, and so that should be fine. So there's not much to see there. And then the water pump, it has a big square cut O-ring on it, and I'm not sure if we can see that right now or not, but so it's got that square cut ring. And then when you're looking to buy one, just make sure that it has a drain hole on it. The original ones did not. So you got the two mounting holes, and then there's a drain hole on the back. If you don't have that, there was a recall to deal with it. So that's an important thing to check for that. You don't want to get old stock somehow by accident. But it seems like a super easy thing to change. Some people keep them in the truck because they seem like they're somewhat unreliable, unfortunately, with that component. If you're doing a lot of hot shotting or something like that, you might want to keep some drivetrain or belt train stuff with you. So that's it for tonight. I'm signing off. I'll pick away at this a little bit longer, but nothing more to film. So I decided not to go inside. So to change the tensioner wasn't too big of a deal. I have these long ratcheting wrenches, so you can reach in and break it loose with the offset side here, and then once you get it going, you can get in with the ratchet and work it. And then like once you get it fairly loose, like it's got Loctite on the thread, but when you're putting it back on, like you can reach to the back to start the fastener. That worked out good for myself. I'm not sure if this is an original one or what. It did not look like the Gates. This was a Hideko tensioner. I was able to take that off, and it's got plastic stuck to it all over the place. So not in where the belt is riding anymore. Might have wore it off or what have you. But again, this was super easy to get to, and it's not feeling loose. Like it's still got a bit of tension in the bearings on both, so they were okay. So maybe not really necessary to change them, but we did anyway. So then I'm just going to hook up the batteries so I can lock up the truck for the night, and now I'll be done. It's day 2 here now. I'm picking away at this thing again. So getting the TXV out was no big deal. It's just 2 4mm hex head screws, so you can reach in through the fender well and get that. Then there are O-rings in this position, so we'll need to lube them with PAG oil, and we'll see if we can see them or not, but they're in there, so we gotta go ahead and get those out and replaced. So I have to size them up from the kit. I think that's probably the only O-rings I've come across so far, and there's two kind of sitting by themselves here. So hopefully that's what I'm looking at doing. I've got some instructions here. Well, I guess we could start talking about oil and such. So the compressor is supposed to come pre-oiled, so you don't need to add any oil or anything. You're supposed to weigh it, or I guess volume check it for see if there's 6 ounces in the compressor. But that's what I'm going with. I picked a Denso compressor. It's the OEM. I took a Denso out and I'm putting a Denso in. So it should all be in there. Otherwise, if you're leaving components in, they would have oil in them, and you need to subtract that oil from your new compressor that's getting put in. So here's a bit of a riddle. So this truck is an auto with a manual condenser, and the best I can tell, it's supposed to have 1.3 ounces of refrigerant in it. So that's what I'm going to aim for. There will be depending on how we do it, we might have some stuck in my line set and gauges. We'll figure that one out. See what else we got here for information. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But basically, it says that we're going to, with the truck off, we're going to fill it with high and low side valves. And I'm going to heat the bottles to get as much refrigerant out of them as I can, as the pressure inside the bottle is all you can get out of it. You're not going to be able to really draw any out on the steady state other than just the pressure of heating up the can to like 50 degrees like they talk about. That's for a bigger cylinder, but we'll make sure we can do that with the little bottles without blowing them up, because they do have rupture discs on the bottom of the bottles. You don't want to blow that off. And then you put it upside down to draw the fluid out. Otherwise, you're only going to get the vapor, which is not what you're after. You want the volume of the can, which is in the liquid. It would take forever to draw the vapor out. And then we're also looking at the belt routing. So you can hit pause and look at each of these routes. So without AC, and note the position of the tensioner. So you might as well just slide the belt in first and then put the tensioner around it. Otherwise you got to fold the belt sideways and tuck it underneath. And then especially in this location here is pretty tough. There's not a lot of space between the crank, the tensioner, and the AC unit. So you might as well get those 3 on there first, and then start at 1 and work your way around. And then because there's no ribs or shoulder on the water pump pulley, you're going to be doing it last when you release the tensioner. And if you got the dual alternator set up, again, same sort of deal. It's kind of tucked up against the crankshaft pulley. So I'm just going to get this system put back together now. It's got the 2 lines here. And I think I'll be getting ready to do vacuum at that point. And while I'm vacuuming it down, that's when I'm going to dump the coolant out. Because I think 1 pail should be enough. I only need to do the top half of the engine. If you're doing the turbo, the VGT, it's like right at the bottom. So you'd have to get more out. But I think 1 pail should be enough that I don't lose any when I pull out the water pump here. So I think that is it, so we'll carry on. Looks like we're on to flushing the system, so I was able to use a pick and pull off those 2 O-rings, and that worked out good. Then the little bag has the right O-rings from what I can tell. So looking at this flusher here, it says to put in 1 or 2 pints. I have no idea what that means. The can is in ounces. I don't know what a pint is. So I'm gonna just fill it up half full, I guess. And I can't open it by hand. I'm glad those pliers are here. So I kept the flush inside so that it would be ready to go. And yeah, definitely don't take that off without making sure there's no pressure inside the bottle. You might end up going to the hospital. Otherwise, let's see what's going on in this can of flush here. It's got a little pull tab in it. Amazon really smashed this thing before they shipped it. So I should do a sniff test. It says it's like non-toxic. I have no idea what it is. It doesn't smell like a solvent or anything. It's kind of strange. Hopefully it doesn't freeze in there. I'm crying if that happens. With brass, you don't want to over tighten it, you're just going to ruin it. Are you supposed to use this upside down or upside right? Fill it up. The shop air has to be under 150 psi. So obviously there's not a lot of pressure to fill up in there. And to use it, let's point it out here and see what happens. I guess we'll do it like that. Alright, some of them will have a little hanger to hold it up in the air. I don't know why this one doesn't. So, you're not going to be able to see a lot here. I've got a baking tray type thing underneath the truck to catch whatever comes out. There's much that we can show you. I'm going to do the larger hole first, which would be the vapor, because the liquid goes in and vapor comes out. So that's the approach I'm going to take, is to kind of back flush it first. And bear with me, I'm trying to get in here. Sort of a do it with your left hand kind of situation, because you're not going to be able to reach with your right. We'll get in here. And here we go. Oh, what a mess. That's terrible. Well, there's dye everywhere now. This is... Wish I had a UV light, that'd be pretty something. Let's see if we can show you the side of the engine now. That stuff is like absolutely everywhere now. I caught a little bit of it. So it looks like that can probably be enough to only get the evaporator, and that's about it. So that's all I need to clean, so that's not a big deal. But it's certainly a messy thing. I gotta clean this line out here as well. That'll be my other part of the mission. Hopefully you're able to see something to happen there. But it's gonna be a problem to clean that up. And if the police ever come by with a black light, well, I'm in trouble. So I've been continuing to blow down the evap coil there, and that's quite a task. When they say you need to blow it down for 45 minutes, they mean it. There's quite a bit of oil and what have you coming out of there. You can't vacuum down the oil. You could vacuum any humidity or lower vapor material out of there, but it's really slow to do the vacuum. So I'm continuing to do that. And then just going through the O-rings. So there's one ring that's missing. So the solid liquid line that you leave on needs a ring on each end, and they're slightly different. And in the kit that I bought, there's only one. So I'm going to have to reuse one, which is a bit disappointing. and I changed my turbo feed line while I was waiting for my compressor to pump up. And I haven't put this line back in place because I feel like it'd be easier to do the water pump first and then I'll stick that thing on. So I guess we're at the point where we're going to drain the coolant out of the truck. This truck has an aftermarket rad, but it's either going to be, I think, a 10 hex, or on mine it's just a flat thumb screw to drain the rad. So you can just pull this out of the side to the side and reach in there and put a drain hose on and then fill up the bucket. So I'm going to do that because it's going to drip a little bit on both sides, so I'm kind of waiting to do that last because it's a bit messy. But I guess we're on to that part of the job as we spend a bunch of time blowing down the evap coil. Coolant draining is ongoing here. If you can see down there or not, I can't really see what's on the screen, but there's a thumb screw or an Allen head and a little tiny 3/8 hose barb down there that you can put the hose onto. I can't see what I'm looking at here, but anyway, it's in there. You just kind of poke it through into a pail. It's awfully slow. It'd be better if, because the system is large enough to fill up a pail and a half. If you had something bigger, you could just let it drain and walk away for an hour and then come back. But I just have to, if I want more than a pail, I'd have to just remember to come back and stop it before it overflowed because of the cost of coolant these days. Coolant's down there to, I don't know, probably 15 liters or so, depending on the size of that pail. So a good portion of a pail there. And I was able to get the water pump out. Can't see it because it's not there. So basically, loosen the 10 mil 2 bolts, and then just to crack them with a longer 3/8 wrench, and then finish them off with this 1/4 inch drive. So the one that came out was a plastic impeller. Not sure what brand it is, and I don't see a relief hole on it anywhere. Oh, there's one in here. If you can get into the light, there's a relief hole up in there, and it's got a part number on it. We can look into that if we want to later, but it's out. The new one has that same weep hole there, and another hole there. This is a steel all the way around unit from Gates, so that's not too bad to drain the coolant and stick that thing in. So I guess that's the end of that portion of the video. I'm going to get back to the AC system. So we got the belt out of the truck. There's not really much to say other than you do need to use a trim tool to disconnect the electric clutch. There's if you can see it in there, but you have to separate it because like it's able to kind of freewheel. So you kind of just separate it and push it out of the way when you're pulling the belt out, and then there's a little plug that you put the push pin back in and connect the wiring. So the belt comes out, it doesn't go around the fan. I do have some routing stuff here. I think I'd already showed it actually. So we're going for this one here. I'm gonna put the belt on around the crank and then put the tensioner on and then kind of work my way around, and then the last item, number 9, is the water pump, which I got put on. It wasn't a big deal at all. So I'm gonna get that on. There's no way I'm gonna film that. This is like the most painful thing for me to do is belts, so I'm just gonna struggle on my own. Alright, so we got the belt on. You need to be up fairly high to get to everything. So when you put it around the crank, there is like a Hall effect sensor, like 180 from where I'm pointing on the far side down low. It's a bit tricky. You got to get the belt around it. Actually, this went quite well. What I did was, using this tool, I brought it as far as I could, but I hooked onto it with this wrench here so I could reposition the end. And then when you need a little bit more to get it over the water pump, but you have to do this in my perspective. I was running into this cooler line that was in the way. I couldn't get all the way with the tool on a bit of an angle. But we got the belt on. This actually went surprisingly good. So I'm happy to say that. So now we're ready to start finishing off the lines and vacuuming the system down. So we'll be on to that here in a minute. So lines are all on. I'm just vacuuming my gauges right now. So I've got some refrigerant savers on here that are both closed. I've got this one open, so I'm drawing vacuum. Then I got both of these open, and you can see I'm drawing down vacuum. So at this point, we are going to close this and make sure we're not losing vacuum in our gauge set. So I'll have to do that for a little bit. And if that's solid, then I will begin vacuuming down the system. And at that point, I would have to open these valves and then open the fittings into the system as well. Anyway, it looks like things are going pretty good here. So I'm going to open that again. I'm going to just do a couple turns here, not a lot. Once you can see the moisture coming out, so I'm drawing down the system. So that was adequate. How many turns that was. Then down here, it's hard to see, sorry, it's dark. But I'm opening the valves down here as well. Alright, so I got the all the valves are open now. I'm down to vacuum. It's amazing how quick it draws it down. But we're just gonna let it go for half an hour, and then we'll do a vacuum test at that point as well. So I've got all of my dials open right now. I'm drawing vacuum down on the high side and the low side. So it's drawing up the red and in, and up the blue and in, and with these valves open, it's going down through here. There's a window here you can view for any moisture that might be in there while you're doing this. I do have a digital gauge, but this gauge glass doesn't have a vacuum port point. I could add one, but then I'm just adding like more stuff to the system, but that would be able to measure down to torrs. And you can also kind of tell the different sounds that the vacuum pump makes, whether you're actually drawing on a tight system or not. So I'll be just going inside here for a bit. I guess I'll start filling up the coolant. And it looks like we're going to get most of the stuff done. I still got to charge the system, but we gotten through most of the pile of parts here, aside from the pressure line here for the power steering, but that's sort of a separate system. I can dig into that on my own at another point. So well, things are going pretty good so far. Alright, so we've had the system sitting under vacuum for about an hour. I've kind of cleaned up a bit and had supper, and I'm back out here, and the gauges are right where I left them. So if there was any moisture or anything in there, it would have frozen and boiled off and would have changed the pressure. So we're doing really good now. You can see all the dye everywhere. This is kind of a mess. I wish I had knew what was going to happen there. I might have done things a bit differently. I got the lines in, the compressor is in, the belts on in the right spot on all the pulleys. I need to put in the air box to do the final charge, but basically with the Aisin transmission I'm aiming for 1 pound 3 ounces. I'm just gonna go with that, and if it doesn't work right then I'll know in the summer and I'll deal with it, because like right now it's really just gonna be for defrosting the windshield, and if it doesn't perform, and so be it. It hasn't worked for me in the past. You can see that I've got the aluminum colored evaporator, condenser rather, at the front of the truck. Would have been nice to have a black one, but I wanted to get one that was rust preventive coated, and only the silver ones had that. So because I've got the low loss valves, I can put a can on here and weigh in the first can. We'll take a look at that. We'll do a video of that. And I'll be weighing it in to the high and the low side with the truck off. And when it's time to start the truck, I'll have to get the air box on, and then I will turn off the high side, the red side, because you do not want that on. Like I mentioned, the cans have rupture discs in them, so on the bottom of the can it'll blow off. It says you can warm the can, but not to exceed 52 degrees Celsius or 125, and that just happens to be what my tankless hot water heater is set to. So I'm probably going to run some hot water. I'll clean off the driveway a bit, and if I have to, I'll warm up the cans. So let me just get organized and get that happening. So we're getting close now. So before you turn off the vacuum pump, you need to close your valve so that it doesn't turn off and then a bunch of oil gets sucked into the system, because these are cheap vacuum pumps. They don't have any check valves on them that I'm aware of. So right now I'm still at vacuum, like I had talked about at the beginning of getting organized to do this. So now this is a can that is designed for resealing. So I have a resealing fitting for it, where you draw the stem all the way out so that you don't shoot yourself with any refrigerant. We'll get this on the can. So everything I've got right now is either under vacuum, but there's air from here to here. So I need to do my best to purge these out. Of course I don't need that adapter, so I'll take that off. And then I've got a scale just to the side that we're going to be using as well. So I'm just going to open this a little bit. Just to purge the valve to get air out of it. So that's that. So now I've got my can on the scale. So it must have teared itself when I put it on there. Oh, it's in ounces and pounds. I don't want that. So 19.8 with the lines and everything on it. So we're set to 0. So I'm going to keep note of that number, 19.8. I'm going to start filling up the system. I just want to make sure all my valves are tight down here. So I'm going to open or put this valve in further into the can. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm trying to show a bunch of stuff all at once. And it's dark and it's snowing. It's all ridiculous, but it is what it is. So now I'm going to open the low loss valve and we'll start putting in the liquid. Now, of course, I need to balance. So if you'll probably watch some other videos in addition to mine, but I can kind of sort of see the liquid going through. I'm just going to get the flashlight. I don't know if you can see that or if it's too bright now. There's a bunch of liquid going through and into the system. It's being between the vacuum in the system and the pressure in the can. It's drawing it in. It just sort of stopped now. We do everything we can to help it. I don't know if it's taking the heat out of my hands to do that. I wish this thing wouldn't keep turning off. Now we've got a bit of a predicament to try to figure out where we're at. We were at 19.8. Now we're at 8. So I guess I've gotten pretty much 12 ounces out of it. Pressure came up. So that's, we're going to call that 12 because there's only vapor in the lines. It boiled off. So I'm going to get the next can set up and we'll do some more of this. So I got a fresh can on the scale. You see it's sitting at 15.5 and this can is sitting at 4. So you do the math there. What have we got? It's 11.5 ounces or something like that we've gotten out of it. So that is good, and I just keep calculating here to get to where we need to be. Alright, so I got another can on here. I did the math. I need another 7.2 ounces in the system, so we'll give this a quick purge. So that's that. I'll turn on the scale. We're at 20, sitting like that. And now I guess we'll tare it and we'll see if we can get this done. So you need 7.2 in there. So I'm going to crank in the bottle. That's good. Should probably be wearing gloves doing this. You wouldn't want to get a bad frostbite from it. So that was 2 ounces we just put in. Putting more in here. Four. Here, a bit of a leak. It's 5.6. We're getting there. Seven. I'm going to go 7.4. Reason being is there's going to be a little bit in the line set. I don't know how much extra you want to go. You don't want to overdo it by any means. .3. We're close here. Well, that's alarming. Alright, we overshot a little bit, but at least we know where we're at. So at this point, I have got to start isolating everything. So I'm going to close my valves here. I'm going to get refrigerant trapped up inside of the line sets, which is fine. We'll just take a quick look at the pressures here. It's right at like freezing right now, like 0 degrees. And you can see I'm at whatever that is. And that with the system off. So I'm going to just check my work here and disconnect the line set. And I'm going to get the truck going here. Alright, I guess we'll fire up the truck. I won't know what's really happening. I was obviously reaching in. Hopefully there's no great explosions or anything. So I just have to blow it quickly. And set it to defrost. Under the truck or anything terrible. I guess we'll take the camera off the pod here and belts going around. Sensor is wiggling a little bit. Gotta put coolant in. So smell what this dye smells like when it starts to burn off the exhaust. That's kind of irritating. This one line is under the air box. That doesn't seem right, honestly. I feel like that could be a bit different, and it's probably on me. Turbo's not leaking any oil, so that's good. These trucks make funny noises when they're idling. There's something making some sound in here. I don't know what it is. Could be coolant. Nope. Right now it's going to do a high idle. So it's going to warm up. So I guess I got to put the fender liner in and we'll go for a test drive and see how that turns out. So the truck's been idling for about 45 minutes now. It's got the thermostat opened up, cleaned the driveway off. So I thought we'd go for a little drive around Kingston, see what's going on. Alright, so we're just in a parking lot near my place. Started to go through the codes and what have you. So two things I gotta go home and fix. One is I never put the fuse in for the clutch for the AC system. And it's funny, you don't get any code for that or whatever. Normally you get a code for anything that's not working. And so the pressure there, if you go into the HVAC screen and go into live values, you can get some information there. You can also get like the evaporator temperature sensor and some other stuff. And the other thing was that putting the airbox in, I pulled the two control wires off of the grid heater relay, so I got to go put those back on because that's going to prevent me from doing remote starts, and I do like to have that working. So I'm going to go home and fix those two things, then we'll go for a drive. Alright, so we're just going down Bath Road here, so I got the wires connected to the grid heater relay again, and I've also got the fuse in for the clutch, so that's good. So that's working now. I'll show you the numbers in a minute. It was interesting when I first put that fuse in and started up the truck and parked, like the pressure just kept going up and up and up. Like I think it almost went to 480 psi or something. And so I went through that process. Not too sure why. It was kind of scary watching it. But we did that, and now it's sort of what I think are normal numbers. So we'll just take a look here. So down to 80 right now. It seems to kind of go up and down, like whether you're moving or not, whether it's getting good flow. You can see I'm kind of trying to trend it. Hopefully you can see that fairly well. Like given the outdoor temperature right now, right, it's -1, which is what, like 30 degrees or something. And actually another thing I just did was I turned the fan down so it wasn't too noisy. So now I've got the fan on maximum. Let's see if that has any change on things or not. The AC light is on in the dash, so it seems like it's doing what it can to work. I think when we stop moving here, this pressure might change. Maybe not. I don't know if the system was just kind of trying to get the oil where it needed to go, if that was throwing the pressures off or what. There shouldn't have been very much oil left in the evaporator coil. I blew that down a bunch of times. So you can see, like, we're parked right now, we just at a light, and this number just seems like it's going to keep climbing. We're on the road again. So we're coming up to a road called Princess. We'll turn there and go downtown. Just something a little bit different in the video. Normally do. I don't do very many drive around videos. I do want to get a better quality driving videos, so I gotta sort of set up the truck so I can have a camera mount of some sort. Money truck, bank. Princess is kind of like the main road in the old town here, Kingston. So we'll just drive down to the water, I suppose. See what's going on. It's a Sunday night, 9 o'clock at night. January. There, go bankrupt yourself over there at the Money Mart. See the numbers: 160, 45, 52. So clutch is coming in and out, so that's good. When the fuse is not there, it just holds the voltage to it and says it's engaged the whole time. guess it doesn't have any way of telling if the clutch is engaged. You can't tell if there's any load. Yellow Deli is there. They make some good food. It's kind of different, but it's good. Hot shop. So everything on this road is going to get torn down, and taller buildings are going to get put in. It's just a matter of time. My focus point keeps changing on my screen here. See the temperatures on the gauge there, so with the bra on it gets the truck hot, so it goes up like 97 when you're in traffic. Normally it'd be like 89 when you're putting around. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but the thermostat is at 89, so normally we just sit at thermostatic levels. Can't quite maintain it when you got the cover on. Oh, you're not going to fit in there. Maybe that one. I thought he was going to parallel park behind that Subaru. The funny concrete building there. That was the first one that went in. Who knows how long ago. Kind of weird looking. Kind of like my buildings to be somewhat artistic. But I don't think it is. This is where the road just goes one way. It's actually got like alleyways and things like that, and like rear courtyards where some restaurants are. It's a pretty old city. Careful with the pedestrians now. Started smelling the oil from my turbo. That's very nice. I'm smelling lots of other stuff though. Got a lot of junk on the exhaust, unfortunately. It's going to take a while for that to clear out. So I'm doing pretty good for lights here. It's usually very frustrating to drive in this town. We came here one Canada Day and we liked it quite a bit between me and my wife, so we decided we were going to try to make a plan to move here. And I think it took about a year to move for that to kind of come together. So I applied for a job around Christmas time of that year, and it probably took 6 months. I was able to get the job, worked hard to go through that process. So I think by June of the next year, we knew it was going to happen, and a few things happened, and I didn't get to start until October. So I guess that's more like a year and 3 months or something like that it took. And then I ended up driving back and forth for I don't even know how many years, 4 years maybe. So I had the Jeep. I drove a lot doing that because I was working 3 hours away from home. So I was staying in a room during the week and then going back and forth during the weekends. It was worth it. It was just waiting for my wife to find a good job. She's also well educated, and trying to find an appropriate salary job is kind of hard when you're in that position. Not to complain, because it's all good, but moving, if you want to keep employed, is not that easy at times. You try to make everything work that you need to work out. Got the light on his pants. Just going by City Hall. This used to be a rail town and a shipping town. I guess with my video you can't see nothing. But there should be a train here in little downtown. There it is. Old steam locomotive in behind there. So I guess to recap the job, like I don't really know if it works or not. We'll find that out in the summer. But I'm open for any feedback as far as the charging goes, because I think I did it correctly. And so you gotta pull out the air box, pull out the wheel well, pull off the driver front tire, and getting the lines off are not a big deal. I was missing one of the kind of aluminum ringed O-rings to go on the hard line, the aluminum line. It was the rear one that was missing, as I found out eventually, which is weird because the TXV is part of that kit. So it should have had the O-ring thing for the TXV. I don't know why that wasn't there. If that was an error, I'd have to take a look in the picture description and see if it was in there and just not in my baggie or what. But I was able to draw it down under vacuum and prove there was no leaks. And in addition to that, when I opened the condenser, it was under vacuum or pressure, I'm not sure what. So I knew it was sealed and okay. I didn't clean any of the new lines. I'm glad I didn't. Using that solvent, that one can, I think it's a quart or a liter, I'm not sure what it was. But that worked out. I didn't really like it actually. That stuff was kind of messy, and it wasn't like a solvent like I was expecting it to be. So like it took a lot of flushing, and it never like came out clean and dry. I continued to get all kinds of oil, emulsified oil, and dye coming out after that. So I'm not sure what to make of that. That was a lot of effort. And I guess it needed to be done. I had to get the oil out of that evaporator anyway, because like all the oil I needed was in the compressor to begin with. So that's the way I needed it to be, was to get the rest of the oil out of the system. Otherwise I would have had to weigh out oil from the compressor. I didn't do that. I didn't check the quantity that was in there or anything. Drawing down the vacuum. When you turn off the vacuum, you got to do it in the right order so you don't suck any of the vacuum oil into the system. There's the emergency. You got to go up that ramp. It's kind of a weird emergency room where it's not that big. Like for a city of 130,000 people, like I've seen much smaller towns have similar size emergency rooms. I put some information there about how to get the belt on. I did a separate little mini video today on how I think you might be able to bypass the AC compressor. The water inlet bracket appears to have extra mounting points so that you can rotate the tensioner. I wasn't able to prove it. Didn't have the time, I didn't have a tap to clear out the threads. So maybe someone can check in on that and tell me whether I had that right or not. I did another little mini video on the coolant filter. That actually was working. It was pulling material out of the coolant. And I'd flushed the coolant on this thing a bunch of times and removed a bunch of debris. And it is really hard to get it all out. I don't know what else to say about that. So for hours, I think I put in 5 hours on Saturday, and then today, I don't know, I might have put in 7 hours. So what is that, like 12 hours of working, doing a bunch of different things. Changed the tensioner, the idler, the water pump, the belt, overhauled the AC system. I think that's about it. Did I miss anything? I don't even know anymore. And then the videoing, that takes a little bit of time. So anyway, about 12 hours of work. So it's a weekend to do all that stuff. That's what we're getting at. So I don't know if I saved between $1,000 and $2,000 doing all that work. So I think that's a good use of a weekend. This is kind of along here. This is the Olympic Park down here. So when they had the famous or infamous Olympics in Montreal, they actually did the rowing and sailing in Kingston, I believe. At least the sailing, I don't know what the rowing. This is like a really old part of town, from what I could tell. Like the buildings are right up on the sidewalk. There's no front yards, door. You just pop out onto the sidewalk. Another Tim Hortons here. Pressures 108. What's that doing? So I think we kind of got everything done here. We're 453,000 kilometers now. I'm hoping that there's 1,000 kilometers at some point I can drive without something breaking. I got a check engine light, which I'm very certain that that's going to be the glow plug, or not glow plug, the grid heater relay circuit. So we'll get that to clear. I don't want to clear the ECM or PCM on this thing because it erases all of the emissions data. It's better if you don't clear this. Although I just did an emissions test like a month ago, so I got 11 months for it to go through all the alarms and everything and be okay. But I want to like see if I can clear this code without doing anything. So I guess that's about it. Done driving around for now. So thank you for watching. I'm just sitting in my driveway. I just wanted to show that for whatever reason, when you stop moving, the pressure just goes wild for whatever reason. It holds in the clutch, and it goes up to like 430. I'm not too sure why. I'm not grossly overcharged by any means, right? So we put in about 11 ounces from the first one, and say 17 and a half to 18 in the second can, 11 and a half. So like even if I had overcharged to 1 pound 6 ounces versus 1 pound 3 ounces, like seems unlikely that I'm like grossly overcharged. Like I said, I can't tell whether the system is working correctly or not. It's just running for dehumidification, right? Like I've got my defrost on the windshield and the feet, and the AC on. So it'll do AC either way, like realistically, when you're on defrost. That's just part of the deal. It's trying to pull humidity out. But yeah, anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there at the end in case anyone else sees that. You can get some pretty wild pressures at times when you're parked.